TessaHill. This is my audience for the invitational speech that I will be doing today. I also have a cameraman. You guys can be seated, thank you. And today I'll be doing my invitational speech on animal testing. Not tested on animals. These are the big, bold capital letters that we often see on our toiletries and drugs that we use to help us prevent disease and treat illness. A lot of people go to the store and they'll read that label to make sure that they are getting the product for them, and they will make sure to make the decision on if they're going to purchase that product off if it's tested by animals. A lot of companies will parade around that they're not testing on animals, and then they shame the companies that make products that are tested on animals. So the question at hand today is it ethical to test products and drugs on animals? Animal rights activists would say absolutely not. But a lot of human health connoisseurs might say, yeah, that's okay. Today I would like to discuss both sides of this topic with you and find out your viewpoints on if you feel that the properties of animal testing are ethical or not. According to authors from the Public Library of Science, there's new evidence that animals have cognitive and emotional function. Therefore, they can suffer long-term problems from being animal testers. Rodents such as mice and rabbits often are the victims of animal testing because they're high in population and they have a similar genome to humans. These animals can have a lifespan of up to 3 years, not in laboratory, but if they are in laboratory, we can shorten dramatically their lifespan or potentially end it on site just by trying to test out new drugs to help humans. Some would say that regardless of that fact, this testing is used to help humankind. And whether we're curing illnesses or testing the best hair product out there, that it could still be animal cruelty, and there are other means that we should follow in order to test these products that's not on animals. Alternative methods to animal testing have been proposed, like in vitro and in silico testing, which offer insight into research that's already been done to help predict the outcomes of the chemical reactions inside the body. There are 3 R's that are suggested by the International Journal of Pharmacy and Life Sciences that could be implemented to avoid animal testing. They write these out as replacement, reduction, and refinement. They believe that if you can replicate these over and over in these different types of testing, that we can prevent animal testing altogether. The article proposes that because we already know a lot about the genome properties of both these animals that we test and humans, we can put those properties into computerized systems to see how they might react with the chemicals and predict what issues we might have rather than testing on these animals. On the other hand, opinions out there state that animal testing is completely necessary to advance medical research. An article from the New Internationalist Journal discusses facts that while drugs testing on animals may or may not be successful on humans, their genetic makeup is very similar to our genetic makeup. So we can prevent negative and adverse reactions if we move straight towards, animal testing rather than human trials. It could also be argued that by conducting animal testing that we save the lives of a huge part of our population, because if we test this on the animals, then we can deem whether or not the drug or product is safe or unsafe for human use or consumption just by using it on the animals first. So right now I kind of want to hear your thoughts. I've shared with you 2 sides of animal testing to help you formulate an idea on if you feel this practice could be considered ethical or not. So at this time, I do wish to open the forum up to you and hear your opinions about the matter. Do you have an opinion to share?
Yes. So I think that testing on animals, first of all, is not ethical, but also it doesn't necessarily prove anything because we'll come out with something that is meant to cure or help with something, and then a couple years after people have been using it, then all of a sudden there's commercials for it killed somebody, so call this law firm, blah blah blah.
Okay. Oh, absolutely. And I've seen those commercials all the time. You're watching TV in the middle of the day and you see that commercial pop up where it's like, if you or somebody that you know has had this,
right?
Now we've got this lawsuit. So
right.
That's a good point because we may or may not be actually conducting the research that we're supposed to, and maybe that testing isn't even necessary on those animals.
Right, because it's a long-term thing usually, and the animals aren't living long enough to actually prove that, plus they're not human. So,
Right, because like we said, they're 3-year average lifespan.
Right.
We don't know the 50 years,
Right,
average,
right.
so is it necessary?
exactly.
That's a good view.
If they would have, asbestos,
Yeah, no,
something like that.
absolutely. That's a good viewpoint. Do you have something to share, Kayla?
I do. So I don't think that it's very ethical because animals do not have speaking abilities. People can speak for themselves and say if they want to do it. So I think that if people were to volunteer to be tested, and then if the organization had enough money to pay those people, then less animals would get hurt and more people would actually not have to get the lawsuit in a couple years because more people would be tested on. And it's not very fair to animals because they do not have a say and they can't say no. And people can volunteer for this or they can say absolutely not. It's not up to the animals in this case.
Oh, sure. And I think that that's a good point, too. Maybe something that I didn't consider in my research, that these animals don't have a say. So we're kind of deciding for them and giving them that say. So by having this debate, but really if the dog could talk, maybe she would say, no, I don't want to do this, or perhaps she wants to be part of it to help, So I think that that's a really good point, and that if they can't volunteer, then is it ethical? I like that a lot, absolutely. Does anybody else have anything to share?
I think that animals are put here for our consumption, whether it be for food or for other reasons. I don't know so much that for testing for, say, perfumes or anything like that was in the mix, but I believe that we're here to conquer the earth and use the animals, and if they were given a voice to tell us, please don't use us, that might be a little bit different, but they weren't given a voice. They're made dumb for a reason. And if we're slaughtering a cow or killing a cow to eat and it told us, please don't, I have a baby, that might change things, but they're made dumb for a reason, so we need to consider that also.
Right, and that's true, and that's a good point, too, that you can consider. I mean, we eat hamburgers and chicken, and we slaughter those people, or those dog, animals all the time. So if we're slaughtering these animals to eat them, then are we, being unethical by testing on them? Like, one way or the other, we're using them for human growth, human development. So that's a great point, absolutely. Awesome. Well, today we reviewed supporting arguments for both, whether animal testing be ethical or unethical. I do want to thank you so much for being part of our discussion today. I do invite you all to do further research to more solidify your stance on if you think that this is ethical or not. And I just want to thank you again.